Welcome to episode 17 of the Blasting Basketballs podcast. I'm your host, Steve Gino, joined today by special guest Noel, a childhood friend, and it's been a long time coming. Noel, how's it going?
Doing great. Excited to be on the podcast. It's been a while, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yep. And Jason, how you feeling? It's your third time on the pod. You're actually a friend of the pod now. How you feeling?
Yeah, I'm good. Resident Sonics fan here. Just chilling, watching basketball, gambling on basketball a little bit, losing a lot. So it is what it is. Yeah. What do we got on the topic list?
Yeah, so it's actually funny because, Jason, you reached out to me before this episode and you were like, yo, we got to talk about KD-Rapaport on the pod. And I was thinking to myself, we don't really talk too much about drama on the pod. We try to keep it mainly like the basketball side of things. But I do think this could be an exception because there's a couple interesting things that came out of this. So there's a couple repercussions. So KD was fined by the NBA. But there's also the social repercussions of this because KD commented on what happened after, and I don't necessarily think he said the right thing. So, Jason, do you have a summary of what happened, or would you like me to kind of summarize what happened?
Yeah, so KD and Rapaport, they were in the DMs, and Rapaport kind of came at him first, which kind of warrants KD's response a little bit, even though his response is a little out of left field. But Rapaport was saying, oh, you answered this question like this Charles Barkley question some dumb way, and he's like, well, fuck you, cocksucker. And it's like, yeah, KD kind of took it a little too far, saying he was spit on his face and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's at the same time, Rapaport, you're a rat now. You can't be putting that out there to the public. That's kind of ridiculous. But yeah.
So just to backtrack a little bit. So when Barkley asked KD this question, he was asking him a really cliche question. He was like, oh, so you've been working back from your injury, so you just been getting in better condition and working on your game? And KD was rather than giving a really cliche response, he was just yeah. He didn't say anything
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was
yeah, it was real. And then there was a really awkward silence after KD said that. KD was yeah, and then it was just 10 seconds of nothing. And it was actually kind of funny. And then Rapaport was why don't you just answer the question rather than be a crybaby? And then that's when KD started really going at him, saying all these slurs and stuff, and that's where the issue comes into play because KD came out after and he was I'm sorry that people saw me say these things. That's not how I want to portray myself. But he didn't really apologize for what he said. He apologized because that's what people saw him as. So that's where the issue is. Noel, how do you feel about this whole situation?
So I find it interesting because I do think that the whole situation, the way it blew up, is Rapaport's fault because of the way he leaked the DMs. I think that at no level should there any be a leaking of DMs between two high-level celebs, or when they're just talking in private. If you're talking your trash, you talk your trash, but you don't pour that out. With the language, it's definitely inappropriate, I would say, for today's media day. But the thing is, from what I saw in his messages, yeah, he was using some slurs towards insults. But if we're going to be honest, we're playing ball at, say, for example, the Y, we're going to hear this type of stuff all the time. It's in basketball culture of talking trash growing up. You hear these type of things that aren't necessarily politically correct, you're going to hear them. So I understand why he was using that language and why he was kind of hesitant on the apology, too, because that's just kind of how ballers grow up, is with vulgar language. So that's where I stand on it.
Yeah, and I think KD, he's not apologizing to Rapaport. I still think he hates Rapaport. he's just apologizing that he got kids watching him. Like he doesn't want kids to see him use that language and stuff. Like I understand that. And Rapport, like this dude, he claims himself as like the king of trash talk, but it seems like he can dish it, but he can't take it. Like what are you doing? Like releasing those DMs? Like bro, come on.
Yeah, the craziest thing about this situation probably is that KD was fined $50,000 by the NBA. And this is where it gets a little tricky because like it was a private conversation between two people outside of like the NBA confines. Like, so how are you going to fine KD for something he said outside of the workplace to somebody privately? That's where it gets a little like sticky. Like, how do you feel about that, Noel, that he got fined for saying something in a private conversation?
Yeah, so especially with the NBA, this happens with the NFL too. They hold their players to like, I would say too high of a standard almost. Oh, because you're in the public figure, oh, you should be held to a higher standard. For example, like doctors and lawyers, which I've heard on some sports debate shows. I guess because they're in the public eye, it makes sense. But at a certain point, it gets a little ridiculous. Like I think finding someone $50K for those Instagram comments is ridiculous. If I'm being honest, I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah. It's like chump change to him though.
Yeah, for sure.
But
yeah,
it's still coming. It's still like coming out of his pocket. But
yeah, $50K is $50K, and at the end of the day, Rapaport costed him the $50K.
Yeah.
Because if he kept it private, nothing would have happened. But like,
right.
He's such a troll, honestly. But I low key feel like I feel like Rapaport and KD might actually be friends. Like they might.
He said, like we talk like this on the regular. Just this was caught him on a bad day or something. He said that tweet, so maybe they just talk shit like that and just caught him on a bad day.
Yeah, again, like I think it's just a weird situation, and I don't always want to talk about drama on this pod, but because it's directly affecting like one of the top players in the league, and like there were a couple like really significant like consequences. I think the social consequence is more entertaining or more interesting than the financial one.
Yeah.
Because like, how is this going to affect the way that people view you as a person? I mean,
well, KD, I got his went back in the day. He was on the Sonics. I was still in Seattle. I went to one of their practices. I got his signature, so I'm always going to be a KD guy. I got his back, so.
Did you have his back through the whole like the Golden State drama?
Yeah. At first I was like, yeah, it's a little like cheap that he's going to this like 73 win team, but I just can't. I gotta love him, man. He was a Sonic, and I gotta love him. And he's good. He's amazing.
It's just a little cheap,
Yeah, I think he's better than LeBron.
Whoa.
Yeah, it depends.
Whoa.
It depends what you're talking about. But when you have to team up with other people to tackle this one guy, it kind of says all you need to know.
That's what I'm saying.
But speaking of KD, I was actually thinking about how it's so cool that the Celtics have both Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, because it kind of feels like we have this like premier duo that like rivals like KD and Russell Westbrook levels in OKC. Like you don't really think about it that way because we're like so used to it, but like they're really like a top duo right now. Like how do you feel?
They're like, aren't they like 500 right now?
Yeah, but at the same time, like I don't think that says a lot about them as players. Right. It might just say more about their surrounding cast. Like how do you feel about
like Westbrook and Beal?
How do you feel about the level that Tatum and Jaylen have ascended to, and do you think that they don't get enough praise? Noel?
So, the league, since the whole Golden State, Cleveland, like half a decade of super team this, started splitting up into duos, especially younger duos, because the recent draft class has just been insane. And I think that Jason and Jaylen are right there as far as young duos in the league. But I also think as far as overall duos, they're kind of middle of the pack right now compared to, like, for example, LeBron and AD or PG Kawhi. Like some of these guys just have a little bit more experience, and so that's kind of I think why partially the Celtics have been struggling all this season. They've kind of given too much responsibility on these two guys. There's too much. Maybe it's not just the team, but the media as well. And so I think we've been struggling a little this year, but their numbers have been good. So.
Jason, anything to add to that?
I think, like I said before, like Tatum, to me, he's a little too cool for school. Like he's a little too lackadaisical with his like gameplay. Like I like Jaylen Brown. He seems to bring more energy, like defensively and everything. I don't know. The Celtics, they're just struggling, and they don't seem to have like that fight in them. And like Dwayne Wade said, like they don't really have an identity. Like somebody gotta like take over. Somebody gotta be like, I'm the alpha here. Like this is my team at some point, and like we gotta keep Marcus Smart at all times. You know, Marcus Smart gotta be on the team at all times. But yeah, I think if they added a few more pieces, they need a big man. They should have got Vucevic or something. They need and I don't know if Brad Stevens is the best coach, honestly, but I know he's had success, but he's not having success this year.
I'm laughing right now because I'm just thinking one of my friends told me like Tatum dribbles the ball so hard that one day he's gonna cause a hole in the floor. I don't know why, but like when he's doing that like step back move, he's like dribbling it so hard between his legs. I don't know why I'm laughing.
And I think the Celtics, like they've been so hyped up because I think the East has been pretty weak the last few years. When they made that run with the Cavs, who didn't have Kyrie or Kevin Love, and they made it to Game 7, everybody's like, "Oh my God, this is the best Celtics game." It's like, no, like they didn't face anybody like that great, you know. Like they faced LeBron without Kevin or Kyrie, and they still lost. Like I don't think they're that. I think they're a little too hyped. And they faced Giannis that year?
Mm-hmm.
They did. I think that was the one year that we actually beat Giannis.
That was a young Giannis with the Eric Bledsoe and stuff.
So I actually wanted to mention, so when you're evaluating like Jaylen and Jason, it's important to remember, like this is going to come up later on too when we talk about the MVP race, is like when you're evaluating how good a player is, you don't just evaluate what they can do individually, but how do they affect the guys around them? And that's the next step that Jaylen and Jason seem like they have to take, being able to kind of make the guys around them better and facilitate when they need to. Sometimes it feels like they have tunnel vision. In my opinion, it seems like they think, oh, we're down, I gotta eat, like I gotta get mine. But like sometimes you need the help around you to really get over the hump, which I don't think they fully understand at this point in their career.
They had that help too with Kyrie, right? And Al Horford. Like that was when like they were supposed to make that jump. Like that was when they were, you know, but it just didn't happen, huh? Maybe they were a little too young, but
So to jump into like the current state of the NBA, so I think one of the more interesting things that's coming up soon is the play-in tournament. So the play-in tournament is kind of a way for the NBA to breathe some fresh air into the playoffs because, to be honest, the playoffs have been historically just a little dull, especially in the first couple rounds, because it's almost like there's never any true surprises. There's never any like true underdog upsets, and that's mainly attributed to the fact that in the NBA there's 7-game series, where like in other sports there's only one game that determines if you move on or not. In 7 games, you're going to find out who the better team is. So there's never truly an upset. There's more so just like exposing who the better team is over 7 games. But with the play-in tournament, you really get a chance to kind of breathe some fresh air into it. And also some teams that might have struggled with like injuries or getting going late, they have a chance to make it. Like a team like Chicago, the Bulls, they made some pretty big deadline moves, and they're gonna have a chance to make the playoffs with this play-in tournament. So some people don't accept change or they're not very receptive to change at first, but I honestly think it's a good idea. Like, what about you guys?
Yeah, I think the plan is a great idea. I think last year, it really felt like a playoff game when, Dame was trying to get that last win to get in. And you saw that it actually mattered. They gave the Lakers some trouble in the first round, like the first game. And then they got hit by some injuries. But I think that it's great overall for, especially some of the small market teams too, to encourage them to not just tank for the lottery as soon as they're out of like contention for the 6 or 7, and just be like, oh, I don't want to go to the 8 seed and get swept. So now you have something to play for, which I really like, and it makes it a lot more exciting.
That's a good point, actually. I didn't really think about the fact that it could actually help with the whole tanking situation. Because, like, if you're fighting for a play-in spot, then there's only really, like, a couple teams that can actually tank. Because the play-in goes all the way to the 10th seed. So, like, the 11th, the 12th, the 13th, they're all going to be fighting for that play-in. So it does take away from some tanking. That's a good point. Jason, do you have any input before?
I think it's like it's a welcomed addition. I don't think it's that impactful. I still think the top teams are still gonna win out anyway. But it's good for the. It's like they're bringing a little bit of the NCAA tournament into the NBA, which is cool. I like that aspect to it.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's a change that's not going to like hurt the history books too much, because I know that's a worry with making some of these changes. Like, how is it going to affect the history books?
That's one thing. Like, long term, I think it would actually be cool. Like, if we see like a 9 seed fucking go to like the conference championship, like that would be cool to see.
It would be, yeah. Yeah, and there's some teams that would really make it exciting, like the Pelicans, the Knicks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're teams that are pretty exciting young teams that would be cool to actually see in the playoffs. So I actually want to explain how this play-in tournament is going to work. Do you guys have an idea of how it actually, like, specifically is going to play out? Or
Vaguely.
Noel, do you have like a really good idea? Because it's different from what I thought it would be.
So it's pretty much like the 7 plays the 10 and the 8 plays the 9, and then you kind of have a little tourney, right?
So I was actually reading up on it a little bit today. It's different. I thought that was what it was going to be too. So it's actually going to be the 7th seed and the 8th seed are going to play first, and whoever wins that gets the 7th seed. But the good thing about being the 7th or the 8th is you get 2 shots at making the playoffs. So the 8th seed is still in it. The person that loses is still going to have another chance. So the 9th seed and the 10th seed are going to play a game, and whoever wins that has to play the loser of the 7-8 matchup for the 8th seed.
Oh yeah, because then the Grizzlies have to win like twice last year or something.
But it's actually different than that setup too. It's like a whole new setup.
And it's just one game, right?
It is just one game. Well, the good thing about being the 7th or the 8th is you get 2 shots at it. That you get to play the winner of the 9-10 matchup. So it's like, you know what I mean?
I get you.
I mean, it's kind of complicated, but like at the same time, as you think about it, it makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's more fair to the teams that were better in the regular season, like to give the 7 seed a better shot at making it.
Yeah.
So, do we think anybody is going to beat the Lakers or the Nets, or is that's just a collision course?
You know,
not happen.
From an emotional standpoint, I would like to say the Clippers have a chance, because so
gotta see how playoff P shows up. Gotta see.
So 2 of my favorite players of all time are on the Clippers right now, Rondo and Paul George. Yeah. And being a Paul George fan, sometimes I feel like the only guy in the world. But like, honestly, I still think he's a really rare player in terms of how he can put the ball on the floor at his size and how he can score from anywhere. And also Rondo, I just think he plays the game so purely, and he's going to be able to put Kawhi and George in positions where they don't have to work as hard for their shots.
Mm-hmm.
So being the second year that they're actually together, I think they have a significantly better chance of doing something. Do you guys have any thoughts about that? I mean,
if
Yeah.
Paul
So-
George, he's
Okay.
balling this season. If he keeps that same energy for the playoffs, then yeah, I think they could definitely win. But I don't know if he's going to keep that same energy.
Noel.
So I love that they got rid of Lou Williams. He does not fit their team at all because whenever Lou Williams was on the floor, the team would just screen and roll him. Whoever's playing him, screen and roll Lou Williams.
It's a
To
good
get a
point.
bucket every time. I definitely think Rondo helps them a lot, and I like that Ty Lue is their coach. I think he fits their team personality more than Doc does. But when I look at it, and I like the addition of Ibaka, their bench just I don't think has enough. I think Luke Kennard has been struggling this year. I think some of the guys on the bench are young. I think Zubats gets exposed by every single elite center in the league. And I think they're going to give because I think they're going to play the Lakers round one. I think that's what's going to happen. And I think they're going to lose in 6 to the Lakers. But I do give them a shot if LeBron or AD is 50-50.
Mm-hmm. And AD, his health is up in the air. Like, it kind of reminds me of KD's Achilles injury, where they're saying, oh, it's just a calf issue. But it seems more like an Achilles. So we'll see how that shakes out. If the Lakers... So obviously, if the Lakers are 100%, they're probably going to go to the finals. But let's say the Lakers aren't, and like AD gets an Achilles injury or something, like that opens the West up. Who do you think will take over if that happens?
You know, I would watch out for the Jazz. I mean, they're not like a sexy pick, but they've been the best team in the league all season. I mean, they have Donovan Mitchell. I think, in my opinion, I think Mitchell's better than Tatum. Just to be honest, I think he has a bigger bag than Tatum. I think Tatum has this one go-to move that's it can be red. I'll just say it can be red in the playoffs.
A little step back.
And I think Mitchell just has such a greater array of things that he can do, where Tatum, he just, in his body language sometimes it's just, I spoke to Noel about this before, it's like, you can tell when he's going to have a good night. He never, he doesn't get after it all the time, like every play. It's like if he makes a shot, he's going to play hard. If he misses, he's probably just going to put his head down and walk up the floor.
Yeah, and they're 1 seed for a reason. You know, they're playing as a team. They play as a team, and Donovan Mitchell's more of a playmaker than Tatum. And then after Shaq kind of called him out and said, "Are you I don't know if you're really that guy, you know, whatever." And he kind of balled after that. He's been balling. And Jazz, they have a good bench. They have a good starting lineup. They have good ball movement. I don't see why not. Even if the Lakers are healthy, they could make a strong effort.
They don't really have a weakness. The only thing that worries me about the Jazz is
Rudy Gobert. He sucks.
Well, he's part of it, but when you look at the playoffs, what gets you to the next round of the playoffs is star power. And after Mitchell, there's a bit of a drop-off compared to other teams when it comes to star power. So that's the only thing that worries me. Do you think I should put as much stock in star power as I am, Noel?
I actually was just going to bring that up. Without the Lakers, I was looking at 2 stars on each team pretty much for the contenders. You got Utah, Phoenix, the Clippers, Denver, and say Portland. If I'm picking Portland. 2 of those, shout out Portland. I love Dave, but
they're gonna get
swept. Picking any, oh yeah, they don't. But if I'm picking any duo out of the duo in the playoffs right now, I'm taking Phoenix and Chris Paul and Booker personally. I think they're gonna really show out, and I think that Chris Paul has gotten so unlucky over the years. When I think he's maybe the 3rd best point guard of all time, and doesn't really get enough credit for carrying team after team after team. And I think this year it's gonna pay off. And if the Lakers are hurt, I see Phoenix going to the finals.
That's strong.
You know, that's a sneaky pick, and it shouldn't be because they're number 2 in the West. But it's they haven't shown us anything in the playoffs yet, so I think that's why they're not as much of a recognized pick.
And they won 8 straight last in the bubble. It's like, and they didn't have Kelly Oubre. It's like, and they don't have Kelly Oubre this year. They have Chris Paul, who's arguably much better than Oubre. So.
Yeah, and Booker is, on any night, he can be the best player in the league. I mean,
yeah.
When you drop 70 points at 20.
I like their coach a lot. I like their coach, Monty Williams. He seems like
great
a good
coach. Great coach.
Yeah, so when you're talking about star power and the playoffs, this kind of ties into the MVP race. So, like, the MVP race this year is pretty interesting because the guy who's the front runner isn't somebody that you would typically see as the front runner. Nikola Jokic, he's a fascinating player. He doesn't do what you expect him to do. He's not the prototypical NBA player. He has these really peculiar, like, unusual ways of scoring, ways of viewing the game. His perspective on the game is just so unique, in my opinion. The way that they, like, use him as the pick and roll ball handler in Denver, and it's just so cool to watch because you just don't see it that often. He's pretty much unguardable in the post. I mean, he has these little, like, ways of using his pivot and little chicken wings that he gives you to get you out of the way. It's like, I love watching Jokic, honestly, and I'm glad that he's the front runner because he deserves it. How do you guys feel about the MVP race right now?
So I think that Jokic is ahead by a little. I was on the Embiid train when he was healthy. I still think he has a shot, but I don't know if there's enough games left for him to catch up and the way Denver's playing. But the one thing that sticks out to me about Jokic, like you were saying all these great things, but at the end of the games, he never looks flustered. Like, there could be 10 seconds left, they're down 2, down 3. He's never rushing his shot. He's never forcing the pass. He's never going at the wrong time. And, like, most of the time when he's shooting a buzzer beater or shot down 2 at the end of the game, he's hitting it. And he's like almost surprised if it doesn't go in.
Those one-legged
I think he's going to win. And I think.
Yeah, I mean, he's practically averaging a triple-double right now. And a lot of people, like, in the beginning of the season, I remember I saw, like, a press conference he had. He said, everybody talks about how the Clippers lost to the Nuggets, but nobody talks about how the Nuggets beat the Clippers. You know? So it's like, he deserves his respect, and I think he definitely will win it. He's, like, minus 200 in Vegas right now as the MVP favorite. So, but also I think Giannis, he could be MVP too, but he had the last 2 years. I think people are kind of tired of him. They're not going to give it to him. You know, it's probably going to be Jokic because Embiid, he had the little knee issue for 10 days or something, and then LeBron's injured, so definitely going to be Jokic probably, if not Giannis. But what about like most improved and rookie of the year? You guys got any ideas on that?
Yeah, I think rookie of the year is going to end up going to the kid on the Timberwolves.
Anthony.
Why is his name like
the kid on the Timberwolves? Anthony Edwards.
Yeah. For some reason, his name is like so generic to me that I just forgot.
This dude, he had one of the greatest dunks I've ever seen on Watanabe.
Yeah.
Dude, that was sick. He elevated as high as you can elevate. He cocked back as far as you can cock back, and then boom. Like, damn, that was sick, bro. And then I heard the Timberwolves actually, like, A-Rod bought the Timberwolves, Alex Rodriguez, and I'm hearing rumors that they might move to Seattle. I don't know. You know, so.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Nice.
Yeah, but that'd be sick. But I'll feel bad for Minnesota. But it's whatever.
Yeah, the most improved race is a good topic too. I don't really have like a particular person in mind. Do you guys have
I think I got one. I would say, well, probably Zach LaVine, honestly.
That's actually a good shout. Zach LaVine, he is impressing me a lot. I mean, he's always been known as this dunker, athletic guy, but he's showing an all-around game that you haven't really seen from him as much in the past. So that
Yeah.
definitely is.
So the odds from Vegas right now is Julius Randle is number 1. Jeremy Grant is number 2. And Christian Wood is number 3.
Oh, yeah, no.
Interesting.
That's actually makes sense. I definitely would go Julius Randle or Levine.
Yeah, Zach Levine is 6.
Randall's going to win it.
In my opinion.
Yeah, Randle probably. Because Jeremy Grant started strong, but he kind of died out.
Or he's just on a team that nobody really cares.
He's in Detroit. I mean, those numbers don't really mean much to me anyway. It's like you're the only one shooting the ball. But he's been good. Yeah, I think he's a good player. I just don't think he's 25 a game.
Right.
Yeah.
So the freaking these refs are getting ridiculous. These ejections. Kyrie and Dennis Schroder got ejected last night. Like Devin Booker got ejected for some bullshit. Montrezl Harrell got a technical foul for yelling and one. Like these refs are out of control.
Yeah, it's tough because like where do you draw the line between like stopping a situation from escalating, but also not ruining the game by ejecting star players? Like where do you draw that line? It's tough.
I just think you need better refs. Like a lot of these refs are like so freaking corny. Like they're like little white guys that probably never played like competitive basketball in their life. Like I don't understand like who are hiring these refs, but like I had a DFS line. Like I put Dwight Howard in my in my DraftKings lineup. No sponsor, fuck DraftKings, but sorry for the curse word, but he got ejected, and then I put Dwight Howard in my lineup the next game, and he got ejected 2 games in a row. Like, it's affecting my pockets.
Like Noel, where would you draw the line from keeping players in the game, but also trying to stop a situation from escalating?
So I think the referees used to have a lot more power. Say, for example, in the early 2000s, 90s. And now I think it's become a players' league for sure in the NBA, where even like some of the foul calls, like Trae Young does some of the worst stuff for the game I've ever seen.
Oh my God!
Like when he dribbles up to the free throw line and backs up into someone and then shoots it to get the foul, and the refs will give him it. But I don't think it's on him. It's on the referees. The referees need to stop calling this BS of people just flopping and flailing and jumping into fouls. And that's part of it. But like some of the stuff I've seen this year from the techs, like Harrell got one for yelling and one. Tatum got one for slamming the ball. Chris Paul got one for smiling. Like what is this? This is the NBA. People in the 90s were throwing hip checks. And now we got people calling someone yelling and one and there's a tech thrown? What?
No, that's actually hilarious that you said Chris Paul was smiling and he got a tech.
Yeah, literally.
So soft. Yeah, and it's like you said, it's encouraging these players. Like they're not shooting to make the shot; they're shooting to draw a foul. It's ruining the game.
Yeah, I mean, there's these ways that you can like manipulate the game and how the refs call things. Like with Harden, like he like hooks the other player's arm, but like you can't really do anything because like, it's tough. It really is. Yeah, the refs are always one aspect of the game that I try to avoid because it's like you can't really do anything about it. Like, what are you gonna like tell them? Like, it's hard. Like, are you gonna tell them not to call things?
Mm-hmm. If I could add one thing, I would say like the replay too. That takes way too long. I should not be watching 10 minutes of replay for 2 minutes of game. That's ridiculous. Like, just make a decision at that point. If it's really that close, just go with the call on the floor. We don't need to analyze it from every angle.
Imagine the NBA just abolished refs and they were like, all right, call your own fouls.
Yeah, probably be better.
It would be a lot more dramatic, I'll tell you that.
Well, that's for sure. Robots can't stop a fight.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I do have like I guess one more thing I would touch on if that's all you guys have.
I have a few more topics. You can
I got a
go.
little-
Oh yeah, but I think we're hitting a sweet spot in length right here. But
yeah. Yeah, that's a good time actually. Yeah.
did you have anything like really important that you wanted to bring up, Jason?
I don't know if it's important, but it'd be just somewhat of a discussion. You guys know what's going on with like Draymond Green and the WNBA and like equal pay and all that?
I did hear about it a little bit. I think Draymond's heart is in the right place. It's just sometimes things can come out wrong. Or it's like, I think he should listen before he speaks, you know?
It feels like he like made a statement on Twitter and now he's trying to like backtrack and kind of like make it seem like it's like, oh, he's doing it for the right cause. But I mean, it's like, he makes sense at some point, you know? It's like, you got to drive in revenue if you want to get paid more.
Simple as that. Right. He's speaking to the reality of things. Like, he's saying why they don't get paid as much. But at the same time, you just got to, like, support them anyway. It's, like, something that could be said but shouldn't be said, you know?
No, I don't know.
I get that. I've actually, I looked into this a bit, and I understand where Draymond is coming from, and I think that it is a tough topic, but at the end of the day, the WNBA was operating on a loss. They were losing millions of dollars every year, and then the NBA decided to basically pay for the WNBA to stay afloat and made them a joint organization. So the NBA owns the WNBA and runs their league and funds them to stay afloat. So that's why I understand where this equal pay gap, there's a disconnect, especially not to go too off topic, but with women's soccer, for example. Like, okay, they have a better team than the men's team overall. They don't make nearly as much money. And so that's where I stand on it.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you just have to look at the reality of things, you know? But at the same time, that's not saying that we don't support them.
Right.
It's just you have to also view the other side of things. It can't just be all emotion. You also have to use logic at sometimes.
Right.
So I think we should move on from like basketball, but first I want to shout out Gary Trent Jr., former Portland Trailblazers. He went 17 for 19 yesterday. Fucking beast.
Yeah, I think that move for him was great. It gives him an opportunity to really showcase what he can do.
Yeah, and I've always loved him. I'm disappointed in the Blazers for trading him, but you know it's good for him. He has a place to shoot as many shots as he wants. But you guys want to talk about before we go, Jake Paul, Ben Askren, and maybe a little bit of Francis Ngannou, some John Jones.
Yeah, sure. Actually, those are two fights that I like. The Jake Paul and Ben Askren one is pretty interesting because you got Jake Paul who has all this hype behind him, but he's not really a fighter. And then you got Ben Askren who's an Olympian. But at the same time, I think Jake Paul's a favorite. So it's like, what's going on here? Like, Askren is an Olympian, but at the same time, he's not really a boxer. But you think he would still find a way to win. So it's a really interesting matchup. How do you guys think that's going to play out?
I've watched a lot of Ben Askren fights, and oh my bad. But
you're good.
I think that he's a guy that just takes hit after hit after hit, and he's going to keep thumbing at Jake, and he's not going to be ready for it, I don't think. Even though he did get knocked up by Masvidal in that quickest knockout, that was an exception. For example, if he misses that flying knee, I think that goes the full rounds. Like this guy, he's not a boxer, but he's a fighter, and he's willing to die in the ring. So that's why I think Jake's going to lose.
So the odds for Jake Paul it started out as Jake Paul minus like 200, and then it changed to like minus 120. So Vegas thinks Jake Paul is gonna win, and the people think Ben Askren's gonna win. I think Ben Askren, he's not a boxer. I think Jake Paul, I think he's low key like a boxer. Even though like everybody hates him because he's like this fucking cringe lord on YouTube and stuff. But I think he can fight, you know? Like what he did to Nate Robinson, like everybody was saying, oh, he's not going to beat a real athlete. It's like, all right. He easily beat him. I don't know. I think Jake Paul, like, it's interesting. I think he can definitely make some noise. And I think Ben Askren, like, I respect his, like, whole wrestling career, but his UFC career has been brutal. And people say he doesn't have a glass jaw, but it's like he's been, like, demolished in the UFC. Like, he got killed in the UFC. So I think in the more you get hit, the more your jaw becomes glass. So we'll see what happens, but I think Jake Paul's going to easily win. But I'm not going to put money on it because that's just amateur fight. But so Steven, what do you think?
Yeah, to be honest, I think the most likely scenario is it's going to go into the deep waters, and I think Askren is going to pull out like a decision. But at the same time, Jake Paul is actually really exciting. Like he has a big following for a reason. So
yeah, everybody wants to see that Conor McGregor fight. That'd be lit.
I think McGregor's losing a little bit of steam due to his recent loss, right, as well as not really being at the forefront of the UFC anymore. He mainly just does his whiskey thing and like stays behind the scenes. So like, yeah, I don't know if the McGregor fight is as big as it once could have been.
He's gonna rematch Dustin. If he wins that, then could be.
I don't know. Poirier's improved a lot, so it's gonna be tough to beat him. But yeah, I mean,
it's tough to beat Conor twice in a row. That'd be tough.
Yeah. And then you have Ngannou on the other hand. I think he's a champion. Adesanya is a champion, and then you have Kamaru Usman, champion. So they're born in Africa, right? 3 African-born champions. I think they're planning on doing an event in Africa, actually. So that'd actually be insane, especially with fans coming back.
Yeah. And Ngannou and John Jones, that's the fight. That's the fight we all want to see.
You're not gonna like it. You're not gonna like it when it's all spent on the ground. See, that's the thing.
With Ngannou?
That's the thing about UFC is like, it can be really exciting, but it also has really low lows of like on the ground, nothing's going on. Mm-hmm. It's really boring. That's the only thing about UFC, in my opinion. But yeah.
I think Ngannou's going to light it up.
You would hope so. But honestly, John Jones seems a little too seasoned. If I was going to bet on it, I'd go with Jones.
Yeah, I mean, he's arguably the GOAT.
Jones has never lost, so I'm never gonna bet against him.
Right.
His one loss is a DQ, which, let's be honest, he was beating the crap out of that guy.
Yeah, didn't do like what did he do? Like a
elbow or something. Yeah.
I think Dana was trying to get that no contest like overturned, but he couldn't, because it does look bad if you see like, oh, he's undefeated, but he has this one no contest. So. Yeah. But yeah, anyway, I think we should wrap it up here.
That was a great pod.
Yeah. Invest in Bitcoin.
Last thing for me as well. The Lakers are first in defensive rating. The Nets are 25th. So just remember that when the finals comes around.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the Nets have a lot of hype behind them, and I don't know if they're going to live up to it.
They fucking lost to the Lakers yesterday without LeBron and AD, so, but they didn't have James. We'll see.
Fair. We will see.
I think we'll see next time on the Blasting Basketballs podcast.
There you go.
All right, we'll see you next time, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Yep.
Peace.
See ya.